This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
And then we wind it up with this final one, deliver us from, some translations say evil, but it more than likely is a representation of the evil one. There's a common belief, I think, among biblical scholars that, and by the way, that's not me, I don't consider myself to be a biblical scholar, but biblical scholars do suggest that the evil one is intended here, and the main reason given is that it follows the petition on temptation, and temptation is normally attributed to the devil. That's not always true, because temptation, the Bible does say that sin comes when you're tempted. When you start thinking about something, a weakness in your life, and then it's conceived and it gives fruition to sin in your life. But anyway, I'm not sure that that's sufficient enough to say that Jesus was referring to the devil, but I maintain that Jesus meant to use the term he used, and he meant evil. And so what he was saying was, deliver us from evil. And it may have been the evil one, but I think he was just talking about evil in general. Keep us from being evil, doing evil, from being subject to evil. One of the things that I pray every day for my family, and I pray for family members by name, my family, and then I pray as God puts people on my heart, I pray for them specifically. And one of the things that I pray for is protection from evil. And I think it's important for us to understand that we are facing evil in this world like we've never seen before. It's just odd. It's just as bizarre as it can be. Earlier this week, I was thinking, I don't think I'm paranoid, but I'm starting to feel a little paranoia about what's going on in the world. I look at what's going on in the world, and I think, they're out to get me. They're out to get us. And that's really what the Bible teaches is going to be happening in the last days. And the idea is that as the world starts going in this crazy, wild, out of control, spinning motion, that where everything it can't be controlled anymore, the people who are going to suffer are the ones who take a stand for what they believe in. And Christians and by the way, not just Christians, other people who have other belief systems are going to struggle for that also. But we have to stand firm on what we believe, and as a result, there's going to be a price to pay. It's just going to happen. And it's going to happen, I think, in my lifetime. And I think that means it's going to happen in your lifetime. So it's important for us to understand that we have to stand strong, and we need this principle so desperately in our lives, to be delivered from evil. Jesus prayed that very thing for his people. He used the same word in his prayer for the disciples in the upper room that NIV interprets as the evil one. He uses the same word when he's praying in the upper room. In John 17:15, he says, my prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from evil, or from the evil one. Jesus was praying for his disciples, and notice in that prayer, chapter 17, go read it sometimes, he's also praying for you, because he says, all those that would follow. And so he's praying that prayer for you also. He's praying that you would be protected from evil. And we need that protection in the world today. You're seeing it in your life. You're seeing it in your family. You're seeing it at work. You're seeing it in your communities. We're seeing evil like we've never seen before. Now, I am not one that goes around looking for the devil under every rock. That's dangerous to do. But I will tell you this, that we're facing it like we've never faced before. And we need to be sensitive to this, and we need to be praying for protection for ourselves and praying for protection for each other. A better way to understand the flow of the prayer here is to understand, I think, what the biblical concept is of human evil. That will help us to understand this context of the prayer. The Apostle Paul explained it this way, which is probably the most confusing verse or verses in the entire Bible. Romans 7, starting with verse 19. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it's no longer I who do it, but it's sin living in me who does it. Got it? And what Paul was saying was that when I let evil have a foothold in my life, then it begins to take control. Listen, anytime you let evil have a foothold in your life, it's not going to stay just a little foothold in your life. It's going to work to try to control your life. That's what happens. So when you let evil take a foothold in your life, what you are doing is playing footsies with the devil. That's really the best way to explain it. And it's one of those things that when you start playing with fire, you're going to get burned. James explained it this way in James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. But each one is tempted when, by his own evil desire, he is dragged away and enticed. See, you have evil desires. And temptation will lead to that evil desire. It will begin to reveal that evil desire in your life. Then, after that desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. Sin, of course, being out of God's will. And sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. You see the progression? You see the danger? When you flirt with temptation, you are playing with the fire of sin. It's a very dangerous thing to do. And that's why Jesus put it into prayer. It's important for us to understand that we have to take a stand against those issues in our life that tend to bring us or pull us or push us off of the island of God's will. So, at the root of sin is evil. Your sin is rooted in evil. That evil nature which exists in you. You do have that sinful nature inside of you. That nature which, when allowed to run unchecked, will wreak havoc in your life. Romans 6:12 says this, "Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, so that you obey its evil desires." Don't let it reign, R-E-I-G-N. Don't let it be king in your body. Don't let it have a rule in your life. Don't let it take control so that it begins to control more and more and more in your life. Don't let it happen. Deal with it. Submit it to the Lord. Define it, acknowledge it, submit it, and overwhelm it with the grace and mercy and goodness of God. So how do you deal with that root of evil in your life? Well, 1 Peter 4, verses 1 and 2 says it this way. "Therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourselves also with the same attitude, because he who has suffered in his body is done with sin." Now, that verse, stop right there. He who suffered in his body is done with sin is referring to Jesus. He's the one who suffered, and he's done with sin. Sin has been defeated. There is no victory. Sin has no victory now over Christ. That your sin killed him. Your sin put him to death on the cross, but he rose. That's why I always say he died to be your Savior, but he rose to be your Lord. He rose over and above victorious over the sin. And as a result, he does not live, verse 2 says, he does not live the rest of his earthly life for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. So Christ alive in you, the Spirit of God comes alive in you, and therefore, as you continue to live your life, you live it not for your own evil human desires, but for the will of God. So here's the question. Some of you have asked this question before, and this is one of my answers. How do I know if I'm saved? The answer is this. Do you want to do the will of God? Because a lost person doesn't want to do the will of God. A person who has been born again, who's invited Christ to come in and live in his life, and has the Spirit of God living in his life, wants to obey God. He wants to do the will of God. He's seeking after it. Does that mean he's not going to struggle with sin in his life? Of course he's going to struggle with sin in his life. In fact, a person who has been saved is going to come under greater attack because he's saved. What do you think the devil's going to say? Oh, God has saved one? Don't let him go. Don't mess with him. He's saved. Are you kidding? You're fodder. You're like the devil says, boy, if I could just hurt God by hurting you, I've got you. I'm going to do whatever I can. And so you are going to deal with it more so than ever before. You're going to be under the gun. You are going to be attacked. You're going to have to deal with evil for the rest of your life. But here's some things that you need to do to deal with that in your life. Number one, recognize that only Christ can overcome your sin. That's what 1 Peter is saying. Only Christ is the one that can overcome your sin. You can't do it. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to sin anymore. You are so full of baloney. You've already sinned because you think that you're arrogant enough to think that you're not going to sin anymore. That's either arrogance or stupidity. You figure it out. The idea is that you have to have Christ in your life to overcome sin. So the only way that you can deal with sin in your life is to let Christ reign supreme in your life. Let him have the position of being king in your life. Secondly, stay in the will of God. Stay on the island. Don't step off of the island and go flirting around with sin. Choose to stay in the will of God. It is your choice. And then thirdly, trust this promise from God. 2 Timothy 4:18 is a wonderful promise from God. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. Now remember, his heavenly kingdom is already in existence here on earth. And he will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen. But that first sentence is so important for you. Memorize this. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. Not heaven, his heavenly kingdom, which exists now. And as we saw earlier in the Lord's Prayer, it's that heavenly kingdom that is reigning that we're to live in today. We're to abide by that heavenly kingdom. And if there's a heavenly kingdom, there is a king. And he is on the throne. And we have to trust him for that and rely on him for that and live within that concept. So, recognize that only Christ can overcome your sin. Stay within the will of God. And third, trust that promise from God that he will rescue you from every evil attack and will bring you safely to his kingdom.